Representative Fischer.
Fischer present.
Thank you. Representative Frederick.
Present.
Representative Hansen.
Hansen, present.
Representative Keel.
Present.
Thank you. Representative Liebling. Representative Mueller.
Present.
Representative Noor.
Present.
Representative Novotny. Representative Pearson.
Pearson, present.
Thank you. Representative Pinto.
Present.
Representative Rasmussen.
Rasmussen, present.
Representative Robbins.
Present.
Representative Sandell.
Present.
Thank you. And Representative Schumacher. Oh, we have a quorum.
Thank you, members. Let's see, Representative Fischer, would you like to move the minutes from February 16th?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to move, I've reviewed the minutes and I'd like to move the minutes from the our last meeting, which was the 16th.
Thank you. Any discussion or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion prevails and the minutes from February 16th, 2021 are adopted. Okay, members, today we have 3 bills, and I just want to remind everyone that we need to end this committee hearing right at noon. So I know we had to get quickly out of here yesterday. I apologize for getting through those bills rather quickly. I just want to also note that we have 2 bills coming over from divisions, and there was extensive discussion in those divisions of 2 of our bills that we're going to hear today. So we're going to focus probably not so in-depth on the policy, a little bit about the cost and why it's important that these bills continue to move forward. Also note that we have about 3 weeks before the first deadline. So if you're still working on bills, make sure you try to get your work done and get those submitted to the revisor so we can hear those bills before the first policy deadline. So the first bill we have before us is House File 60. And it looks like there is a DE amendment. And this bill is going to be laid over for possible inclusion. So Representative Koegel, welcome to the committee. Would you like us to move your DE amendment so it's in the shape you want before a discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, I move the A1 DE amendment. All those in favor of moving the A1 amendment, please signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the A1 amendment is now adopted. So Representative Koegel, again, welcome. Please tell us about your bill. And again, this will be laid over for possible inclusion.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. So House File 60 really came about with because of a relationship I built with a constituent over the past few years. I was 2 years ago and I was out door knocking and very pregnant. Terry and Alan answered their door and invited me in out of the heat. And we sat down and had a great conversation. And a little bit after the election, they came to me wanting to get some laws changed around notifications. They have and I'll let them tell their story, but basically what this bill does is if there's a child care provider that has had their license revoked and due to some kind of maltreatment and is applying for or appealing to get their license reinstated, this simply just asks that the guardians or parents of that child be able to participate and are made aware of the appeal hearing. And so I will let Terry and Alan share their story with you.
Thank you, Representative Koegel. So the first testifier I have on the list is Terry Rieger. So welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Morning, Terry Rieger, T-E-R-I-R-E-G-E-R.
Please proceed with your testimony, Ms. Rieger.
Go ahead.
Well, first off, we'd like to just thank the committee members for giving us an opportunity to present our story. We ask for your support in the changes that we're proposing in HF 60. And if you have any questions after we're done, we'd be happy to answer them. And now I'll turn it over to Terry, who has a brief statement for you.
Good morning, and thank you for having us. This time of year is pretty difficult for our family. Next week, it'll be 3 years ago that our grandson, who was then 4 months old, was rushed by ambulance to Masonic Children's Hospital in Minneapolis and was diagnosed as a shaken infant. An investigation began with the Sheriff's Department and Child Protection. And based on the chain of custody, the nature of his injuries, and statements that were given, it was determined that our grandson was hurt while he was in daycare. Part of the investigation was an immediate suspension of the daycare's services. She filed an appeal of her closure, and that was heard before an administrative law judge. We've been able to get a copy of that order as well as the transcripts of that hearing. A lot of the information that was given during that hearing was inaccurate regarding our son, his wife, and his children. Our son and his wife were shocked to learn that this hearing had even taken place. They weren't informed, they weren't invited, they found out about it after the fact. And had they been notified of this hearing, they would have attended and been able to provide information that may have affected the ruling that the administrative law judge made. In his ruling, he noted that the parents were absent, and so he was only able to make a ruling based on the evidence that was presented, and the daycare was allowed to reopen, and she is in business today. So we're asking that language be included that parents of children who are maltreated in daycare homes are notified of the hearings if a provider is appealing their closure, so that they're given the opportunity to present all sides of the story. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. and Ms. Rieger, and my condolences, and so sorry you had experienced that with your grandson.
Thank you.
So, Representative Koegel, do you have anything to add to this? Otherwise, we'll open it up for questions.
No, I'm willing to. I just do want to add that Terry has texted me pictures of her grandson, and he's adorable.
We like him.
Are there questions from members? Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the testifiers. I'm so sorry to hear about your experience. It's just awful. And I actually had a question just relating to the bill, just to clarify that although the situation involved the child care, it seems like from looking at it and looking at this section of law that really would apply to all situations where there's licensing for DHS. And I guess I'm interested in particular that it is broader than child care. The Early Childhood Committee focuses on child care in particular, but it seems like this really is broader. I just want to make sure to verify that.
Representative Koegel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know DHS, I worked with DHS on some technical assistance. And so I do believe they're here. It looks like Ari is on the call as well.
So let's see, DHS. Ari Didion, are you here, or Autumn Baum? If so, can you answer Representative Pinto's question?
Yeah, I can answer that, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Representative Pinto, my name is Ari Didion. I am the Legislative Coordinator for State Government Relations at DHS. We met with Rep. Koegel to kind of talk over her intent on this bill. And so the DE amendment kind of addresses the original bill was a bit broad. So generally what the amendment does is it removes changes to the sections on temporary immediate suspension hearings and fair hearings and focuses on contested case hearings, which would be the ones that go in front of an administrative law judge. Because first of all, with the, and then the language that we suggest instead goes into the Maltreatment of Minors Act and mirrors language for contested case hearings that's currently in the Vulnerable Adults Act. So we removed temporary immediate suspension language because this type of hearing, this would not be the kind of appropriate time because the maltreatment investigation is still often ongoing, and this is not the final licensing action. Specifically to Rep. Pinto's concern about this being broader than just childcare, that's part of the reason we took out the section relating to fair hearings, because those are maltreatment hearings more generally. So that would also apply to maltreatment that did not occur in a licensed setting. And so in the original bill, sections 2 and 4 focused on contested case hearings. These are the ones that are heard by an administrative law judge. And so we put language that's similar to existing language in the Vulnerable Adults Act here in the Maltreatment of Minors Act. So essentially it strikes everything. And sorry, I'm getting a message from. And so also that this section applies to all license programs where there has been a licensing sanction. Does that answer your question, Rep. Pinto?
Thank you, Ms. Didion. Representative Pinto?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess, no, it maybe doesn't exactly answer my, I guess I had kind of the opposite concern. I'm just trying to figure out if this is specific to childcare only, then I guess it's a jurisdictional issue, just that we may need to talk about whether it needs to be heard in the Early Childhood Committee. It seems like, though, that it is broader, and so that's not an issue. It's really going to licensing more broadly. So if somebody can just clarify, perhaps as Ms. Didion, at this point with the changes, specifically what kinds of situations does this apply to?
Ms. Didion?
So this would apply to hearings for for license programs where there has been a licensing sanction due to a maltreatment finding. So it would not apply to licensing actions that aren't related to a maltreatment finding. But I don't believe, and we can follow up and get back to you on this, but I don't know that it's limited just to childcare, but it would typically be childcare in this type of hearing.
Representative Pinto?
But we can get you a list of licensed programs this would apply to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm seeing perhaps Ms. Sunderman may have been making a gesture to provide help. I will note it does make sense to me this could apply, for example, to foster care situations where there could be a maltreated minor. So I guess I would think that it would be broader, though maybe more commonly in child care, but could apply to foster care and other situations. But perhaps, yeah, Ms. Sunderman or somebody else, Madam Chair, can help with that.
Sure. Ms. Sunderman, would you like to comment?
Sure, Madam Chair, members. Representative Pinto, this does apply more broadly than to just childcare facilities. It would apply to a licensing sanction based on a maltreatment determination for any DHS licensed facility that serves children. So since it's child maltreatment, so it would apply more broadly. Although in reality, most of those are going to be childcare, but there are a broader swath of facilities that this would apply to.
Thank you, Ms. Sunderman. Representative Pinto, does that answer your question?
It does, Madam Chair. Thanks very much for indulging that. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Representative Pinto. Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And our hearts go out to the Rieger family for their circumstances. As a parent, I can only imagine the heartache that you have gone through. So please let I hope you know just how we feel for you. Madam Chair and Representative Koegel, I'm going to add on to Representative Pinto's concerns and or observations about this bill. As I look at the DE1 amendment, candidly, Madam Chair and Representative Koegel, you have materially changed the outlook and the scope of this bill that you're bringing before us today. And so, Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, and I'm curious why without further delay, you would not amend your motion possibly to include not only Representative Pinto's subcommittee, but also candidly a judiciary for the purposes of the courts and civil proceedings that would pertain to this. You mentioned in your earlier conversation about that we are to limit our scope to certain issues, whether they be policy or finance, but candidly, that's why we take a look at both of those. And in the context of this bill, when it has so materially changed, I might suggest that we allow and avail other committees of your choosing or direction, particularly the ones I've already cited, that would have an opportunity to vet this DE1 amendment particularly, and before it comes back to this committee for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill. So observations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Albright. My comments pertain to the next two bills we're going to hear. This is we're giving this a full hearing today. Representative Liebling.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I do sit on the Judiciary Committee, and I don't think that the Judiciary Committee would have jurisdiction over this. I mean, I suppose that after this bill's laid over, the chair could check with the chair of that committee, but this is an administrative hearing. It's not a civil action like a civil action in a court. So I think there is a difference there. But my question is, and I should say, I think we just resolved the issue about jurisdiction in Representative Pinto's committee too. So I think it's quite properly in this committee and quite ready to be laid over. But my question really was, I'm so surprised that we don't already do this. And I guess I don't know a ton about the way these administrative hearings work, but Representative Koegel or maybe someone from the department sort of, why wouldn't we already be doing this? It just seems so strange that we don't allow this kind of participation in these kinds of cases. The judge, I'm sure, can limit and control what goes on, but to not take any sort of input from the family just seems really like you would have half your information missing. So I'd love to just hear just a bit more about that. Thank you.
I agree. I was surprised to find out. We would like to know from Ms. Didion, or maybe Representative Koegel can add to that too, what the current practice is if we're not contacting individuals to be notified about these proceedings. So Ms. Didion, can you help us inform us of what the current practice is?
Sure, Madam Chair and Representative Liebling. I will say that because these are hearings that are heard by the Office of Administrative Hearings, our role as the agency in these is somewhat limited. So I think that in some cases, parents are called as witnesses, but I wouldn't be able to speak to specifics on that. Someone from the Office of Administrative Hearings might be able to speak to that, or I can check back with some folks here in legal and get you more information about that.
Thank you, Ms. Didion. That would be helpful. Representative Koegel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess that was exactly why we brought this bill, is because, when Terry and Alan contacted me, it was kind of hard to believe how this all went down. And I really want to, thank Terry and Alan for making sure that this stayed on the forefront of my mind. It wasn't until, I'd heard their story 2 years ago. And then over the summer, Terry had mailed me a letter and, just to remind me that this is still going on. And so, she really kind of lit a fire under me. And I'm just so grateful that, they're continuing to work on this. And so that's exactly why I wanted to bring this bill forward. I don't think it's like, it's not a crazy thing to ask. And so I think it's a really reasonable ask that, at least families be able to participate when, their child has been maltreated.
Thank you, Representative Koegel. Representative Liebling, did you have a follow-up? No. Representative Albright, your hand is raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have a follow-on question for either Ms. Didion or to Representative Koegel. And as I look at the DE on line 1.8 and then concluding on 1.9, it talks about that the notice must be sent by certified mail. And then in lieu of that on 1.16 through 1.18, if the agency is not reasonably able to determine the address, the administrative law judge is not required to send a hearing notice under that. I'm just wondering, it seems fairly narrow in terms of the only avenue for a notification being attempted to the parents. And I'm wondering if the author of the amendment and the bill would consider including whether how many of us obviously are on social media, whether that be through Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, where you can know where they are working. And so in terms of proper avenues or potential avenues for notification to the parents, I'm wondering if we're limiting it too severely to just certified mail, and that if we're really truly trying to get a hold of the parents, that we might not also include other avenues, whether that be just the old simple telephone or have the ability to search for those parents through other means. Trying to help the parents here with my discussion.
Thank you, Representative Albright. I think we need to be cautious of using social media. You don't want to contact the wrong person and give out private information. But Representative Koegel?
And thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Albright. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think, we need to make sure that there are some privacy protections, and certified mail is one way to guarantee that it's coming from the right people and going to the right people. I would, if email or phone calls are something that we can do, I would definitely I would entertain that. But I think, just as far as privacy concerns, I think that's probably where DHS was coming from. I don't want to speak for them, but that was the language assistance that DHS helped on as well.
Thank you, Representative Koegel. Representative Albright?
Madam Chair, just to follow on to that question, I'm wondering if DHS would weigh in terms of the inclusion of to Representative Koegel's suggestion about a couple of other forms that would also safeguard the privacy of the individuals.
Ms. Didion?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative Albright. Again, I'll just note that our ability to speak to that bit is a little limited because this would be handled by the Office of Administrative Hearings. So what I can say is that this language was written to mirror existing language in the Vulnerable Adults Act. So that is part of why we chose that. I'll also say that we did share our technical assistance with the Office of Administrative Hearing. That's why the amendment has the lead investigative agency, whether that be DHS or the county, providing the parents' contact information, because we are a bit separated from those hearings, and that's kind of for good reason. So, but we might be able to get back to you more on that. We have been running this by the Office of Administrative Hearings as we've been working with Rep. Koegel on this.
Thank you, Ms. Didion. And I'm assuming if there's maltreatment cases, we should have pretty valid addresses for these parents or family members or caregivers or guardians. Representative Koegel, do you have any closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. I really appreciate the opportunity to present this bill, and I'm again just so thankful for Terry and Alan for bringing this forward. And this just seems like the least we can do. So, and I really want to see more pictures of the grandson. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Representative Koegel, for bringing this forward, and thank you, Mr. and Ms. Rigger, for being here with us today. We wish you all the best with you and your grandson for good health in the future.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so this bill will be laid over for possible inclusion in the Human Services Finance Bill. Members, next on our list is House File 162 for consideration. And we have a report on this bill from the Division on Behavioral Health. So Chair Fischer, would you like to move to adopt the division report?
Yes, Chair Schultz, I move to adopt the Behavioral Health Division report.
Thank you, Chair Fischer. So Chair Fischer moves adoption of the division report on House File 162. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none or hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please unmute yourself by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion prevails and the report is adopted. So Representative Fischer, would you now like to make a motion to re-refer House File 162 to the Committee on Transportation, Finance, and Policy?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to refer House File 162 to the Committee on Transportation and Policy.
Okay, great. Representative Fischer moves that House File 162 be recommended to be re-referred to the Committee on Transportation, Finance, and Policy. Please explain your bill, Representative Fischer, and I don't see any amendments.
That is correct, Madam Chair. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to present House File 162 to the committee. This bill is basically the opportunity to provide youth who are experiencing homelessness the opportunity to be able to have access to free IDs and free birth certificates. Currently, we know that at any given point in time, there's approximately 6,000 youth who are experiencing homelessness. About 2,500 of those youth are under the age of 17. 73% of them are of color. 50% of the homeless youth have been on the streets a year or longer. 1/3 of the youth have children of their own. Another 57% suffer serious illnesses in the behavioral health area. 1/3 live with chronic persistent health problems. And many of them are challenged trying to get stabilized and be able to move forward in school, getting jobs, getting banking, etc., because they don't have IDs. In some instances, it is almost the way the laws are, it's almost impossible for someone to easily get IDs, because if you are homeless and under the age of 16, you can't apply for your own birth certificate, is one example. So if we want to make sure that our youth are able to thrive and survive and move forward in the future, we need to provide them with these basic services. I am grateful. The bill that I have came out as a basis of a report that was sent out on January 15th of 2020, where the Department of Human Services and the Department of Public Safety had taken a look at the issue and came out with a report of how do we address these problems? And they came out with a report highlighting a number of things that needed to be changed. And the bill I have, I took this report, and the bill I have went to address the issues that were addressed in the original report to the legislature. Part of it is that from the Department of Public Safety, they were talking about making sure that the ID that would be provided would be a non-compliant ID. What that means is that it would not qualify as a real ID, which is set by federal standards of what you need to have to get a federal ID. And so the bill I have does that, is it has what is called a non-compliant ID, which is like when I had my driver's license renewed, I did not bring the extra documents to become a real ID. It was a driver's license, but a non-compliant because it doesn't meet federal standards. Some of the other things that it had to do is setting in statute the ability to waive the fees for youth who are homeless. We do have that as a provision in there. One of the things that it addresses is that they would need funding to address the issue going forward. So I do have blank appropriations at the end of the bill where funding would be allocated to the Commissioner of Public Administration for Health and the Commissioner of Public Safety, so that dollars would be able to go to both those areas. In the Department of Health regulations, there were several things that had to be addressed. Is number one, they also had to make sure that they had provisions in statute to allow the bill to be, or the youth to be able to receive it for free. Make sure that we have a way to ascertain, a way to ensure who these people are as they're going through the process. And so it establishes how people are able to certify, if you don't have a parent in place, who the other people are that can qualify to certify the identity of the youth. And then it also allowed youth who are under the age of 16 who are homeless to be able to get their own ID, their own birth certificates. And then it also addressed things like going into detail about how you what you need to certify to get the birth certificate, how long the pre-birth certificates are good for. They wanted to make sure that it was a narrow range of 3 to 6 months. So we have 6 months in the bill that after 6 months, these birth certificates are no longer valid. And then it would allow for time for the agencies to be able to roll this program out. And so it was being set as January 1st of 2022 to give them time to go through. And that is the summary of what my bill does. It addresses all the points that were put out in this letter. At this point in time, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Representative Fischer. I know this had extensive discussion in your division, and I think it passed with unanimous support of the division. And it looks like a part of the fiscal note has been completed. In the first year, it's 102,000, and then 64,000 ongoing. And that's only part. We're waiting for the Department of Public Safety to weigh in on that part of the fiscal note. So the Committee on Transportation and Finance, hopefully we'll have the rest of that fiscal note and discuss that piece. You see that we have one hand up, Representative Novotny.
Let me get everything turned on here. Thank you, Chair. Chair Fischer, I just wanted like to say thank you for bringing us forward and putting the guardrails in place to make sure that this isn't an avenue for stolen IDs in the future. Thank you for putting those checks and that there has to be some kind of sign off from an official or social services. That was pretty well thought out. So thank you for doing that. I'd just like to make the observation though that once that birth certificate with the raised imprint is received, there's a potential for that to be abused. And I hope that that is monitored, because today the right person that has it, tomorrow somebody else might have it. So I think it's important that these guardrails stay in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Novotny. And I'm not seeing any other hands. Oh, Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Fischer, a couple questions for you. As I'm looking at your bill, and if you have it in front of you, I want to direct you to section 4 under the application lines 4.2 and 4.3. In most cases, and forgive me for my naivete on this subject, but why would we be offering a birth certificate if the homeless youth is documenting that they are from another state?
Representative Fischer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for Representative Albright. What we were trying to do in this area is making sure that we have the opportunity to help assist the youth in providing documentation. One of the issues that we've run into in the past, having worked with homeless youth over the years, one of the experiences we've had when we've been working with other states, sometimes we're waiting 1 to 2 years before we get the documentation from other states. And so what that means is, well, that state youth has, this is a youth who is born in another state who may have lived most of their life in this state here. And that means that this youth is then not able to get a job, not able to get banking, and is pretty much ensured they're going to remain homeless for that long period of time. And while it is a little frustrating that the other states are slow, I think that it is necessary in these unique situations that we provide our state an opportunity to make sure that we move as quickly as possible to help lift the youth out as quickly as possible to become stable and move forward. When you're waiting 1 to 2 years to get basic documentation, that makes that much more challenging for a youth to be able to get out of the homeless state, because they don't have the necessary documents to be able to be successful.
Thank you, Chair Fischer. Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Fischer, at time of birth, regardless of the state that birth occurs in, is it true or not true that that infant actually, by virtue of the hospital applying for as part of the medical record, or instigates the assignment of a social security number to that child?
Representative Fisher, do you know the answer to that question?
Madam Chair, Representative Albright, I do not know the answer to that question. My kids were born so long ago, those kind of things weren't in place. So I really have no idea.
Madam Chair, and the purpose of my question
Albright.
for Representative Fisher is more of just to authenticate domicile, but also to authenticate the desire to then secure a birth record that would offer some verification based upon that social security number for other services, and or the applicability of tracking down, you know, in some cases these homeless youth may not even know where they're from, as Representative Fisher probably is nodding his head. And so I'm just wondering if that has been a consideration as Representative Fisher has put this bill together, or if not, I would certainly encourage him to do some research on that and as he moves this bill forward through the various committee stops. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Albright. Representative Fisher, closing comments? I don't see any testifiers.
Okay. No, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to present the bill today. I appreciate the input. I will have to look at that Social Security number question as we go forward. I do know that I do have some clarifications that'll be addressed at the next stop that were raised on the definition of the non-compliant that we'll be addressing in public, in transportation and policy. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present the bill.
Thank you, Representative Fisher. So Representative Fisher renews his motion to have House File 162 be re-referred to the Transportation, Finance, and Policy Committee as recommended. We're going to do a roll call vote. Chair votes aye.
Schultz, aye. Vice Chair Bonner?
Aye.
Bonner, aye. Lead Albright?
Aye.
Albright, aye. Representative Bolden?
Aye.
Bolden, aye. Representative Burkle?
Aye.
Burkle, aye. Representative Fisher?
Fisher, aye.
Representative Frederick?
Aye.
Frederick, aye. Representative Hansen?
Hanson, aye.
Hansen, aye. Representative Keel?
Aye.
Keel, aye. Representative Liebling?
Aye.
Liebling, aye. Representative Moeller?
Aye.
Moeller, aye. Representative Noor?
Aye.
Noor, aye. Representative Novotny?
Novotny, aye.
Novotny, aye. Representative Pearson?
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Representative Pinto?
Aye.
Pinto, aye. Representative Rasmussen?
Aye.
Rasmussen, aye. Representative Robbins?
Aye.
Robbins, aye. Representative Sandell?
Aye.
Sandell, aye. And Schumacher is excused. Thank you. So that's 17 ayes, Chair Schultz.
Excellent. The motion prevails. So you're on your way to transportation, Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Schultz, and thank you, committee.
Okay, members, the next bill we have for consideration is House File 294. So I'm going to move to adopt the division report on House File 294. If there's no discussion, seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the division report for House File 294, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion prevails and the division report for House File 294 is adopted. Representative Noor, would you like to move your bill to get it before the committee?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move House File 294 be recommended to be laid over for possible inclusion in the Human Services Omnibus Bill.
Excellent. Now that it's before us, would you like to explain your bill? I'm not seeing any amendments.
That's correct, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members, this bill requires the Commission of Human Services to update a 2007 legislative report on runaway and homeless youth using existing data, studies, and analysis provided by state, county, and other entities. I think Representative Fisher explained some of those issues in the previous bill that we just discussed about. This bill requires the report to include 3 key elements where significant learning has occurred since 2007. Number 1, unique causes of youth homelessness. 2, targeted response to youth homelessness. And 3, recommendation based on existing reports and analysis on what is needed to end youth homelessness. Madam Chair and members, this expands the scope of what was included in 2007 to become more comprehensive. The list of data must include that needed to be included in the report. Finally, this requires the commissioner to provide the report by December 15th, 2021. I've had several discussions with so many stakeholders. I think there's a need to expand to include some of the data from the Department of Education and also to look through the current existing reports. I know there's so many reports that are done by the department to ensure that we can compile and to be able to go through the list of reports that are redundant, and some of them I think may not be helpful anymore. So I stand ready for any questions, and I think there are some individuals who are here to testify on this bill, Madam Chair.
We do have a testifier. We'll move to the testifier and then open it up for questions from members. We have Joe Nathan. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and note any affiliations, and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Noor and committee members. My name is Joe Nathan. I direct the Center for School Change, and I'm testifying today on behalf of 15 people around the state who've been deeply involved in this issue, including several people who have themselves been homeless youth. I really want to thank the committee and the author of the bill for bringing this forward. For too long, the issue of homelessness and homeless youth has been ignored, particularly the issue of homeless youth. Part of the reason that I strongly commend Representative Noor for this bill is that we have different sources of information, and right now already public schools, district and charter throughout the state have to gather information. But unfortunately, in some meetings, in some hearings, this information from the State Department of Education has been ignored. And in some cases, it's double, even triple the number of homeless youth that have been identified, when the method of identification is not by asking the people in the schools who work with these youngsters, but it's actually going around and looking for these kids outside. And many of these kids are couch hopping, which is a terrible situation for the youngsters. It leads to all kinds of insecurities. So I strongly agree with Representative Noor that we ought to include Minnesota Department of Education data already being gathered on this. We know from Dr. Tom Kotke of Health Partners and others that homelessness and housing insecurity has a terrible and long-running impact on youngsters. So I think it's terrific to include Minnesota Department of Education data. Secondly, and finally, in terms of solutions to the situation, and again, Representative Noor and I have discussed this, we have this remarkable program here in Minnesota called Youth Build, where young people who, with whom traditional schools have not succeeded, are actually building homes for homeless, or they're fixing up homes. So one of the things that I'm hoping that the legislature will decide is to take a look at some of the research from Youth Build and other organizations. And I should note that I have no financial or other affiliation with Youth Build. I'm simply identified with this issue, working with this issue, as several of you know, and there are 15 other people throughout the state, including MICA, Metropolitan Interfaith Council on Affordable Housing, that have signed the statement. One other point, last point, this issue of homeless youth is pervasive throughout the state. It's not just Minneapolis, St. Paul, and first-ring suburbs. I've documented through several newspaper columns that there are literally thousands of youngsters who are homeless in greater Minnesota. So this is an issue that really deserves attention. And thank you for your time. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nathan, for that testimony. I just have a question before we move to other members. So this report, Representative Noor, part of it is trying to identify the underlying causes of homelessness among our youth, young adults. Does it also require reporting the census of the number of people experiencing homelessness for young adults?
Madam Chair, I think the bill requires to evaluate what was included in 2007, and it's going to get the data from various groups, as Mr. Nathan just alluded to, when it comes to collecting data from the Department of Education, which indicates there is more than 9,000 Minnesota students who are identified as homeless. So this will be more comprehensive to ensure that we don't miss the opportunity to use existing data merely because of the way the data is collected. I'm hoping it's going to be comprehensive. It's going to include the census data, and also the work that is being done by Wilder Foundation as they do annual report on homelessness. So we want to be more laser focused on youth homelessness, which creates a lot of challenges for the youth. So we want to be able to provide them with the support that they deserve.
Thank you, Representative Noor. I know this had extensive discussion in the Preventing Homelessness Division chaired by Aisha Gomez. Let's see, Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Noor, for bringing this bill forward. I'm particularly interested in terms of building upon the 2007 legislative report. And for the benefit of the members of the committee, I'm wondering if you could just summarize the findings, if you do know, or if someone can support. What was the outcome of the 2007 legislative survey done, and how do you hope to build upon it based upon those findings?
Representative Noor, do you have that in front of you, or do you need help with that question?
Madam Chair, Representative Albright, I think the Department of Human Services here to explain some of, if they're available to give us that breakdown.
There's someone from DHS on the Zoom call that could help address that question.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Andrea Simonet, and I am a supervisor in the Department of Human Services Office of Economic Opportunity. And the 2007 report collected information on agencies and entities that were funded with the original Runaway and Homeless Youth Act funding, now known as the Homeless Youth Act funding. And so it collected information on outcomes, outputs, activities, and the effectiveness of those entities. So it was pretty concentrated on that funding and those entities. This bill is broader in scope, as mentioned, than what that report included.
Thank you, Ms. Simonet. Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Simonet, based upon what you just said, you talked about collecting the information and observing maybe the, not the failings, but the successes of the current support network. Were there any recommendations observed and made as an outcome of that 2007 report to the legislature? I'm wondering what the resolution or where we stand on those recommendations.
Ms. Simonet.
We can get the copy of that to you. I know that there was a recommendation for additional funding, which was used subsequently to obtain more funding. So it did outline gaps in services and gaps in funding.
Thank you, Representative Albright.
Not to belabor the point, but the only recommendation is that there was a need for more money in terms of not a coordination between the various entities or anything along those lines, just that there was a need for additional funding to support homeless youth.
Ms. Simonet.
I could get that information to you. I don't know off the top of my head the specifics of each of the recommendations made.
But I believe it was only $1 million of initial funding. Is that correct, Ms. Simonet?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, is there any federal funding tied to the number of homeless youth in the state, Ms. Simonet? Do you know that?
Federal funding tied to home is the question.
So is it important to have an accurate census? Are we missing out on any federal funds because we don't have an accurate census?
It is, I think just nationally, it is very difficult, as mentioned already, to count youth who are homeless. There was a report done into 2018 by Chapin Hall, the Voices of Youth Count. That was a very intensive national study that picked various regions and various states that could serve as samples. And that really did show a great need for additional services. It showed the demographics, the disparities, talked about rural homelessness, talked about LGBTQ needs, homelessness, talked about education needs. That was a very expansive, very, I think that we might have provided that report after the last hearing to the Chair Gomez's committee, but that report is very intensive and has a big scope and talked about the need to do better in counting young people, but they use methods including in-depth interviews with the young people to provide an accurate count, because it is very, very difficult to get a good count. But that is probably the best that we have at this point right now, that 2018 report.
Thank you, Ms. Simonet. Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I really appreciate Representative Noor's work on this. It's just incredibly important to have this information and updated because 2007, it's been a very long time. I wanted to just speak up to give a shout out to my constituent and neighbor and friend, Mr. Nathan, our testifier. And just I hope committee members are aware of what a tireless and really persistent champion he's been for young people and youth experiencing homelessness around the state, and in particular in my community in St. Paul. And so just kind of want to make sure to give a shout out to him, and hope folks are aware of his work. And thanks to him today. And again, thank you, Representative Noor.
Thank you, Representative Pinto. Yes, thank you, Mr. Nathan, for all of your work. And Representative Fischer is nodding in agreement with Representative Pinto's comments for those who can't see his screen. Mr. Nathan, go ahead.
Madam Chair, and thank you to Representative Pinto and others, but I just want to make a brief comment about the issue of additional money. In some ways, having a more accurate count is going to save Minnesota money. And in some ways, we have creative approaches that can save Minnesota taxpayers dollars, which I know is important to all of us because we have many demands. So very briefly, there is in Anoka Hennepin School District, for example, a program in existence where young people have been building homes for 20 years for less than $100,000. It's a 3-bedroom home. And so what we're hoping to do is to mobilize this knowledge and share it and spread it so that simultaneously we have young people learning construction skills, which is a very valuable and growing field. And we have young people actually constructing homes, and we can mobilize that. So in terms of stretching taxpayer dollars, whether you're a DFL or a Republican, I know we want to make the best possible use. So part of the reason that I strongly support what Representative Noor is doing is that he's going to help us, if this proposal moves ahead, to help us make the very best use of taxpayer dollars. So I just wanted to make that brief comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nathan. And do you know if they're building trades, are they involved with that program?
Madam Chair, yes, they are. Very strong support by a number of building trades for these kinds of programs.
Thank you, Mr. Nathan. I'm not seeing any other questions. Representative Noor, do you have any closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Nathan and everyone who is supporting a comprehensive report on this. And I know you talked about how can we do more. I think there's also the report from the Department of Education using McKinley-Vento report. We don't want to forget the youth during pandemic. We understand the challenges that they're facing right now, and to ensure that the youth that I saw personally who are outside, who are left out, trying to figure out where they can get help during this COVID-19. I think we can always find solutions on challenges for youth because they may experience physical, mental health issues. They may also experience substance use disorder. And this is across the board. But I know that majority of the youth are Black, Indigenous, and people of color youth. And so we want to be able to provide them with the help that they need earlier on so we can prevent homelessness. So I ask for your support. I'm also going to be working with the department to figure out what is the appropriate date. They requested until 2022. And this report based on this legislation requires by December 15, 2021. So I think we have a room to make sure that we have some time. I'll be working with the Department of Human Services to ensure that we have got an accurate date for us to get this report. So thank you so much, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you, Representative Noor. And members, there is not yet a complete fiscal note for this study. And so I know Representative Noor is working with the agencies on getting that fiscal note. So we'll see that in the final omnibus bill. With that, members, this will be laid over for possible inclusion in the Human Services Finance Bill. And tomorrow we are going to take a deeper dive into Waiver Reimagine with a lot more details. And we are going to hear one bill on community-based services. And that is our agenda for tomorrow, members. So with that, we stand adjourned. We will see everyone tomorrow.